I'm talking about my favorite Netflix shows. I'm gonna focus on the Netflix originals here, not just the shows that are on Netflix, but the shows that Netflix themselves produced. And number 5 is American Vandal. This is a show that has a very silly concept. The whole concept behind this show seems pretty childish, to be honest, and it seems more like something that would belong on a funny sketch or a very short video. But this is actually an 8 episode full-length series, and there are 2 seasons. So really it dives a lot deeper than that, because underneath this very silly concept is actually a show that talks about the education system, the justice system, how we assess one another, and how we judge each other, really. And it's about a lot of things, really, and it gets really deep. It's a lot deeper than it looks. That's the easiest way to describe American Vandal. But when it comes to the humor is just as childish and silly as the concept is. And I just like this very unique brand of humor that seems like it's really trying to be different. It's a very different kind of humor that is not afraid to sometimes be incredibly childish, but at the same time this show is not afraid to sometimes dive really deep into a lot of different stuff, a lot of different topics, and some of them are heavier than you might expect for a show that's about dicks. It's really about dicks. I'm not making this up. That's what the show is about. Number 4 is Dead to Me. This is a show about, I don't want to talk about what it's about, but let's just say it's kind of a thriller. But what I like about this show is really, despite being a thriller, I think it's more about the friendship between the characters in a movie. And they just have the best chemistry. Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini, both of them together in a movie that actually shines a lot of spotlight on them, because both of these women are great actresses, but a lot of times they get pushed to the sidelines. They just become supporting characters to a bigger movie, and this is a show that's just a perfect opportunity to let them have the spotlight for a moment. And I really like both of them as the main leads, and both of them have a lot of screen time and great chemistry, a lot of great dialogue between both of them. And I think the show is the strongest when both of them are together. Now I do have problems with this show. Namely, whenever these two characters aren't together, the show tends to be weaker, and those parts aren't as interesting or compelling as the parts when they are together. But still, I think it's a very minor issue just compared to how great this show is. Really, if you want a show that's a very human show that talks about grief and loss and has a very strong emotional core and a friendship at the center of the story, then I think That to Me is the show for you. And number 3 is Umbrella Academy. This is a show that is like a superhero show, but more of the show is actually a dysfunctional family drama than actually a straight-on superhero story. But of course, this movie has a lot of superhero inspirations, as you could see from the posters and the promotional materials. It takes a lot of inspiration from X-Men. It's pretty obvious. But this show is really more about the family dynamics and the relationships between the family members. And I like how some of the family members get along with each other well, while some family members hate each other. So there's a very interesting relationship between all of these different family members. And the casting in this movie is just so good as well. All of these cast members who play these different family members, they are all really good in their own roles, and I really feel like no other actor could replace their role. They really made the role their own. All of the actors in the movie are great. And I like the whole dysfunctional family drama, and it's played up in a way that visually looks like something that Wes Anderson would do. There's a lot of those quirky shots that something like Wes Anderson would do in his movies. But when it comes down to the drama itself, I think the drama feels very raw and very real and very hard-hitting. And number 2 is Stranger Things. This is a very famous and successful show. A lot of people have seen it, but in case you haven't seen it yet, this is my recommendation for this show. I have a whole separate video talking about every single season of Stranger Things thus far, and I like that video, but I'm gonna talk about a little bit about why I like Stranger Things. I'm gonna keep it short. Stranger Things has a lot of 80s throwback, first and foremost, and that's easily the easiest thing to spot from the whole show. And that's the thing that I like from the show. I like the whole 80s throwback feel. But really, it isn't just the 80s throwback that makes Stranger Things famous. It isn't just nostalgia. At this point, if you're talking just nostalgia, Stranger Things wouldn't get to season 3. It only got to season 3 because there's good characters, good writing, there's good direction, and there's genuine love for not just these characters and this world, but there's real love and passion for the movies and the stuff that came out of the 80s. This isn't just nostalgia speaking here. This is just a very well crafted show. I think out of all the shows I talked about, the character work in Stranger Things is the best. Not only do you love them as characters, but you really relate to them as they start to grow up, and it's a coming of age story, but being told through such a long time. You really see how they grow in a very natural way, as opposed to in a movie the characters have to grow over 120 minutes. Since this movie has multiple seasons, seeing them grow in such a natural way really makes me emotional when you see what's going to happen to them, and you really root for these characters. And I think the characters in Stranger Things is really what makes it special. Number one, my favorite show of all time is actually not a very popular show, and that's part of the reason why I'm making this video right now, just to maybe give this show a little more attention. This show is Everything Sucks. It only had one season, and it ended on a cliffhanger, which is the worst thing ever. There's only one season, there's no season 2, Netflix cancelled it, and the last episode of season 1 is a cliffhanger, which is frustrating, but I think you should still watch this even though it has a cliffhanger, because it's just such a passionate show. And this show reminds me why I love films and why I love movies and stuff like that. And it's a very inspirational show to especially people who love films, who love movies. They're gonna love this because the characters in this movie also share that same amount of passion and love and heart towards the art of filmmaking. And the movie is about making a film. That's what the whole show is about. It's just about making a film and all the different things that go into it. But also it's also a relationship drama, and I think it really feels real. And I think this is a show that really understands what it means to be a teenager and the feeling of being a teenager, especially being in high school and all of those different feelings that are mixed in a teenager's mind. This movie really shows all of that in a very raw and unfiltered way. Watching this movie really shows a very accurate representation of growing up that I think is about on the same level as The Breakfast Club. And that's a very, very high level. We're talking John Hughes here. Really, no other show have I ever seen, or any movie except Breakfast Club, that have I seen such a real and genuinely emotional and beautiful portrait of the growing up of a group of people and the coming of age. So those are some of my favorite Netflix shows.